All right, so Brandon, obviously, last time we spoke was after you knocked out Matheus Nicolau. Lots of people, including yourself, couldn't really understand why this fight was placed on the prelims. And obviously now from that, you're going to a flyweight title shot on pay-per-view main card. This has to at least take a little sting out of it, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what I was thinking too. Is like when Dana White did the what is it, the fights you must know or whatever that he
If you
does.
don't know now, you know, right?
Yeah, if you don't know now, you know. He was like, this is a flyweight title contender fight, and I was like, what? But I think I pretty much knew I was getting the title shot off this win, but it helped out a lot more, and it definitely took a lot of the sting off and all that.
Sure, sure. And I know from the last time you spoke, and this has not really been an easy subject for you, but when we spoke, you were talking about how your brothers unfortunately were not able to watch the fight live. That's why you were very disappointed. Of course, they're incarcerated. I don't suppose there's a chance that they'll be able to watch this on pay-per-view, will they?
I don't know what's gonna happen with that honestly, but I would go ahead and say that it's not that they're not going to be able to watch it, but I'm not 100% sure.
But but again, after the last one, they were able to see a clip of the knockout anyway. So all's well that ends well, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I mean, I definitely, I'm definitely the type of fighter to try to put out highlight reels. So hopefully they could see that. And honestly, Pantoja is the same. So uh, the fight of the night type of fight is what I'm expecting all times. Pantoja really brings a battle no matter what happens. So I'm sure they're gonna find that he's gonna find some way to find it, or somewhere to watch it or something of that sort.
Sure, sure. Now, there was a chance you were going to already have had your title fight back in the summer, UFC 290, you were backup fighter in case somebody had missed weight. What was that experience like, training and then making weight for a fight against one of two guys, neither of whom you ended up even fighting?
That was actually one of the most fun I've ever had preparing for a fight because I would have one round Pantoja, one round Moreno, and we go back and forth between it. And so when I was getting ready for the fight, it was like two different looks, two different kind of people, and and to be completely honest, is like I still feel in that situation that I was dealing with the best hand. If somebody did pull out either one of those guys, I was in the most advantaged place with that because I was already preparing for those two. Those two are very similar, like not completely similar, but I could get away with a lot of the same things that I would do with Alexandre Pantoja, with Moreno, and vice versa. And then they'd be walking in on me. It was like a southpaw, a little. I fight unorthodox for sure, and I feel like it's just a completely different fight depending on which one which one would have pulled out or not. So for me, I was super prepared for that fight. I don't know how a normal backup goes into it, but I treated it like I was fighting that day. And yeah, it was one of the more fun experiences I had besides cutting weight.
Sure, sure. Now, of course, you do make the weight, as I understand, right? You made the weight?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in weight.
Yeah, yeah. So, once you make the weight, I mean, what do you do? Because they already made weight. Do you do have a cheeseburger and a bowl of ice cream, or do you try to stay ready over the next 24 hours?
I just stood ready for the next one. I stood ready for the next like 15 hours or so. Once the morning came, they pretty much told me that if anything even happened, it's too late. Like the athletic commission would never approve it. So once we hit a certain time point, it was pointless anyway. So I started. I had Smashburger, which was like right next to the hotel, like at like noon. So at that point, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna enjoy the fights tonight.
There you go. There you go. So, of course, fight goes on as scheduled, as you know, and Pantoja wins, sets up the fight against him for you. Split decision, take the belt off of Brandon Moreno. What those two rounds, it was rounds 2 and 4 that were split. That's kind of how we got to the point where it's like one could go either way. What's your take on the fight?
I scored at 4-1 for Pantoja. 3-2 definitely for Pantoja. I think that I don't remember what the judge scored it for Moreno exactly, but um, I didn't think that in any of the scorecards Moreno should have won the fight. I thought Pantoja clearly won at least 3 rounds, but but live when I was there, I scored it 4 rounds. Going back, I could give him 3 rounds for sure. So I thought Pantoja won the fight. I thought he did enough to get the job done, and he controlled the positions, and he did it. I thought after the second round, I thought Pantoja was done. when the second round came, or like when the second round was over, I'm like, there's no way this guy can go another 3 rounds after that. And he fought right through it, and it was awesome to see.
Were you surprised that he was able to do it? Because I think there was a lot of conventional wisdom. This was his first time fighting past the third round. There was, I think, some conventional wisdom out there that maybe this guy can't keep up the pace going into later rounds, even normal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was thinking that too, and just like body language alone was like a lot of times the body language of like what you see in Pantoja, it looked like he was just exhausted and dead to rights, and the fact that he could pull through on it was cool. And like I felt like I don't know, maybe it's not a cardio issue, maybe it's just his body language issue too. So who knows?
And that's not really an issue, right? That's just showing something that if he can fight through it, it doesn't really matter what he's showing, right?
I agree with that to a certain point. I think you have to look a certain way to win some fights, especially with certain judges, because you have to you have to project that you're the man in charge at certain points, and I 100% think that judges are human, so body language does mean a lot, and people read into a lot of things like that. So if you're not, if you're looking like you're done in between rounds, or if you look like you lost the round, that even if you won, I think judges take some of that into consideration, and even if they are not doing it purposefully. So I think body language and how you project yourself, and doing all that is super important.
Sure, especially reactions to strikes and that kind of thing. Like if you take a strike a little more hard and visually, that maybe that looks that way to a judge. I can understand that.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what's something crazy is I had kind of longer hair, and I don't know if I was gonna do it for the fight and keep it long, but I was told by multiple people that like to cut it off, because anytime I was like pulling my, like someone throw a punch and I pull back, my hair would fly and it looks like I got hit really hard. So I was advised by multiple people that are like, dude, you look like you're getting punched when you're not. Like, we'll look over the videos and go back over the videos and be sparring. It's like I'm not getting hit, but my hair's doing like this obnoxious thing afterwards, and it's flying up the whole other way. And it's like, okay, well, I don't want that in a fight. And then also, I was being so obnoxious, like I was flipping my hair all the time, like doing stuff like that. Where I'm like, I don't want that either. So I
A
had to
clean
cut.
cut look.
Yeah, yeah, I had to cut my hair a little bit so the bangs are out of my face, and every time I pull back, my head's not flying up.
For sure, for sure. Now, either way, of course, whoever won that fight, it was going to be a rematch for you, as long as you were going to fight the winner. Did you have preference? Like, are you satisfied with the fact that it is Pantoja?
I wanted to fight Pantoja. That was my preference. I think Moreno would have been good for the eyes, but I want to beat Pantoja, and I want to fight Moreno because I feel like there's a lot of unknown in that fight. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and I feel like I deserve to get that fight back, because the fact that they didn't consider that a doctor stoppage, or they had that as a win for him, is crazy to me.
Now, the first time we spoke, I should say, it was 2 years ago. It was right before your first Pantoja fight. At this point, now you have 21 pro fights. 10 of them have ended with a tap out. This was the only time you were on the wrong end of it. What went wrong that night?
I rushed it. I rushed the finish. I for sure rushed the finish. I feel like I had Pantoja in a lot of danger. And once like I had him backed up, the whole second round was just all fire for me. I remember, I remember walking to the stool between the first and the second round, and I'm like, this man is done. And I was like, perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. And I was like, this next round, I'm finishing him. And that was another title eliminator fight. So I was like, the title shot's mine. And I feel like I was just so focused on getting him out of there, I was not enjoying the process of being in a fight, and just being smart about everything. I feel like that was a good time to kind of pick them apart, find the right shots, and then find the finish. Where in my head I was like, I'm gonna get him out here right now, and yeah. So I kind of like, I almost just remember exactly what was going on through my head when it was going on through my head, and then I overthrew a punch. I got my back taken. I just watched everything like slip by me, and not watched. He obviously did some amazing things, but in my head, like I watched it all slip away too.
Now, I rewatched that fight right before we spoke, actually, and you understandably looked very disappointed. Jiu-jitsu, that's basically what you and your brother started doing to get you on this path of MMA, and now for a title here at this point. Obviously, everybody taps out at some point, practice or competition. Was it particularly disheartening to tap out in a fight like this for the first time?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like when you get submitted, you know you've done a bunch of things wrong, like, and for me, I feel like when I started my MMA journey, I was thinking in my head for a long time, even with Pantoja, I remember thinking that I'm like, what is he gonna do? Rear naked choke me? Like that's crazy. But it's such like looking back, it was I deserve that. But I remember coming up, I like thinking I'm like, bro, I'm never gonna get submitted. I'm none of these guys are gonna ever be able to touch me in jujitsu. And it kind of just like it made me realize too is just like how much I wasn't still working on my craft and just getting away with things that I've always done, and that was a real eye-opening experience along the way too.
Right. Sounds like a major lesson was learned here. But obviously, you've gone on to win three straight. Would you say that's like the biggest thing you took away from that fight, or are there other things that you think really strengthened?
I think the biggest thing that I could take away in a fight is what I'm actually really good at. I feel like in my head when I got to the UFC, I was winning these fights off a crazy pace and just being a dog. And I thought that was the way for me to win these fights. And I was like, I could just go out there, be a dog. If I had to, I'll go put a pace on them, throw a thousand punches and around, whatever it is, and just overwhelm everybody and then get them out of there. Because I know in a shootout, most likely I'm going to be able to win this fight. And I know my cardio holds up really well. And I know like if we're both swimming in the deep end, I could eventually drown somebody. But and that was like my plan. That turned into my plan A. When now it's like when I think about things and I think about my skill set and what I can do, I can beat these guys in a million different ways, and I can beat these guys in a bunch of different ways. And I feel like that's not my skill set. My skill set is technique. My skill set is being long. My skill set is footwork. My skill set is being at range. And if worst comes to worst, if something bad happens or if none of that is working out, then I can go put a crazy pace on somebody and then go finish the fight that way. But that does not need to be my plan A. That's plan B, C, whatever it is.
Sure, sure. And basically, like you mentioned, you're long. You're one of the taller flyweights. They list you at 5'9". Pantoja's only 5'5". He's probably roughly average, maybe a little shorter at this point for a flyweight. How do you make that length, that size, that strength, stretchiness, I guess, an asset for you? And or how can you even take better advantage of that going forward, making it more of an edge?
I feel like when being a flyweight, you train with a lot of bigger people and like all the time. So I train 45ers, 55ers, and 35ers all day, every day. So even without having like a reach advantage with people, I'm really good at staying out of a long range and then pulling people out of position and then capitalizing off of that. And I always felt like that was something I was really strong at. Um, that being said, is I'm fighting flyweights and then fighting in the pocket half the time. So what I just feel like that's like one of my skill sets that I bring into it is just I could pull people out of range really well. And Pantoja is one of the people that I feel like will put himself in a very bad position. And I kind of just got to let him capitalize on it and just be patient in this fight. And, if I'm starting to lose or if stuff starts going wrong, then it's like, okay, well, we'll fight in the pocket. I'll make it a dog fight. We can try to have fight of the night and all that stuff. And we'll see who survives. But that being said is, yeah, I need to capitalize on what what I've already been given in life, which is being scrawny and tall, or not even tall, but just tall for my weight class.
Sure, sure. Now, I mean, all this being said, I think you still tend to keep a higher pace than a lot of flyweights, probably higher than Pantoja typically would prefer it to be, I would think. You've gone the distance one time before in LFA, 5 rounds. Say you and Pantoja, you go the distance here, or let's say even you make it through the first 15 minutes or so, you get those championship rounds. How confident are you that you can hold your pace better than he can keep up with your pace?
Oh, perfectly confident. We had a couple people that came down to come train in Colorado today, and I forget like what elevation and training at like high altitude does to people. And it's like I have good cardio for being a Colorado native, being a fighter, an MMA fighter in Colorado. I keep a high pace over there. Going down to Vegas and going down at sea level that's easy work, man. I do that stuff all the time. So I could run for days out there. I could do all that. So I'm super confident in that. That's one of the things that I feel like I definitely just uh, at my gym and something that I've always just been really good at is just I've always had really good cardio before fighting, before any of this stuff. Is just cardio has always been kind of something that I've been able to keep, been able to maintain throughout this level of sporting.
Sure, sure. Do you do visualizations like when you think about these fights? Do you like picture yourself being champion and experiencing that moment?
Yeah, yeah, every day, man. Every day I visualize. Even like not even to the extent where I'm like just daydreaming or whatever. Like I'll take time out of the day and sit down and visualize how the fight's going, my walkout, all this stuff, and I feel like you know that's something super important that a lot of people could ignore. And I've been blessed. And who's one of the first people that ever like came across is Corey Sandhagen gave me a book. Me and Corey Sandhagen train at different gyms. I've known him for years, but we train at different gyms. But he gave me like a book recommendation, and it was all about like visualization and stuff. And it was one of those things that was like I could really like, especially someone like me, I'm all over the place. To calm my mind, stay focused on one thing, and kind of like work your mind in the aspect of being a martial artist too.
That seems very on brand for Corey, actually. Knowing what I think I know about Corey is very much like picturing things, visualization, and also spreading the word of that to other people. So that's not surprising to hear, is it?
Yeah, yeah, that kid is super intelligent. That is um, I love. I think of martial arts in like a couple aspects of like I think of people that are just like tough, like a good fighter, like like the fight, like a fighter, like that kind of person. I think of like a martial artist, someone who's just like a nerd for the sport, and then I think of an athlete, and I feel like to be great, you have to have all three, but to be good, you have to have two for sure. And I feel like Corey's one of those dudes who's athletic. He has that like that. He let his arm break in that first like his UFC debut. He let his arm break to get out of that arm bar. He has that fighter in him, and then he's just a nerd for the sport, and he's super like intelligent how he approaches things, and it's really cool to like watch like some of these guys and how they create their paths to success, and I'm happy that I've had to have it like a couple conversations to see where his head's at, so I can grow a little bit the same way too.
How many of those three traits do you think you have? The martial artist, the fighter, and the athlete.
I definitely have two, and the two is being a fighter and a martial artist, like just being a nerd for the sport. Those are the two that I carry very heavily. The athletic part, not necessarily my forte, but I'm working on it. I got strength and conditioning coaches that are helping me out on a daily basis, so we'll get there.
You make do. You make do. Now, of course, and the last question I have for you, when we're talking about thinking about where you'll be when you win, you know, you're picturing yourself winning, of course. What do you believe it will mean for you and for your family? You guys have gone through hardships collectively. You've worked with kids who've gone through hardships in juvenile penal system in your former job. What will it mean for you to kind of reach that mountaintop, become the UFC champion?
I think the most important thing about me winning, or like if me winning, I can show or I can like do, or like I'm not the most articulate person or anything like that, but I feel like the most important thing that I can kind of portray or give out is that what showing up gives you, what showing up and being obsessed and just not quitting on yourself gives you. And I feel like when I left the juvie, I had millions of great conversations. And I feel like anybody that wants to do right in that kind of job does do that, like has really good conversations and meaningful conversations and tries to help out in those kind of ways. But the most meaningful thing that I did at that juvie, or like the thing that I could have showed at that juvie, is just showing up to that job every day, no matter how tired I was, no matter how beat up I was after practice, and consistently showing back up to practice, and then them seeing that every day. I worked as you might know, I worked overnights there, and one of my last weeks there, some kid walked up to me and he's like, "Dude, you look like like you look horrible." And he goes, "Did you sleep? Did you sleep last night, or did you sleep at all?" And I'm like, "No, I got zero sleep." And he's like, well, "So what'd you do?" He's like, I had three practices today, and I slept a couple hours in between. Then I got an hour of sleep right before I came in, and then I'm working this overnight." And he's like, "Well, how long can you keep that up for?" And I'm like, I don't know, man. I really don't know." But but I'm going for it, but I'm going for it. And then a couple days later, I got called up to the UFC, and I feel like those little lessons and them seeing me accomplish those little things along the way were the most out of all the conversations that we had. That's the most important thing that they could see, is that somebody that was just giving it their all, showing up every day to where he needed to be, could make it work with just consistency.